Dear soul, there is something you need to know now, something that the higher realms have been preparing to reveal to you for longer than you realize. The heavy, restless energy that has been circling your spirit for the last few days is finally being decoded by the light of the higher realms. You have felt it, haven't you? That strange, electric tension humming beneath the surface of your daily life, the inexplicable sense that something was shifting in the invisible architecture of your most sacred connection. You may have dismissed it as anxiety, as the normal ebb and flow of emotional tides, but it was far more than that. The universe has watched you carry a silent, crushing weight in your chest, walking through your days with a smile designed entirely to protect the peace of those you love. That smile has been your armor and your offering, a carefully constructed gift you presented to the world so that no one, especially not the person closest to your heart, would ever have to glimpse the storm raging behind your eyes. You have mastered the art of being a sanctuary for your soulmate while your own internal landscape was quietly enduring the aftershocks of a tragic past trauma, tremors that have never fully ceased, tremors that you have learned to absorb into your bones so completely that the surface of your life barely ripples. Heaven has witnessed your solitary tears, the ones you shed in bathrooms with the faucet running, in parked cars before you walk through the front door, in the small hours of the night when the person you love most is sleeping peacefully beside you, entirely unaware of the war being waged inside your mind. Heaven has seen your midnight battles with memory, those brutal ambushes of recollection that drag you back to moments you have spent years trying to outrun. The higher realms have measured the immense spiritual energy it takes for you to keep your shadows from bleeding into their light, and they want you to know that the sheer magnitude of that effort has not gone unrecognized. Every single time you swallowed your pain to answer their call with warmth, every single time you set aside your own crumbling foundation to reinforce theirs, every single time you chose their comfort over your own desperate need to be held and understood, it was recorded. It was honored. And now, a profound shift has occurred in the physical world, and the angels are stepping forward to reveal the truth of what has just transpired in the unseen spaces of your connection, because the time for hidden suffering has reached its divine expiration. Driven by a sudden wave of human insecurity, fear, and a deep, unexplainable urge to truly comprehend the mysterious depths within you, your soulmate did something drastic. They went looking for answers where they shouldn't have. You must understand that this action did not come from a place of malice or cruelty. It came from the aching, desperate love of a person who could feel, on some primal, intuitive level, that the one they adored was holding something back, something enormous, something that created a faint but persistent distance that no amount of affection could fully bridge. They could not name what they sensed, and that inability to name it became its own kind of torment. So they hired an investigator to dig into your past, desperate to crack open the vault of your silence and uncover the truth you have guarded so fiercely. They convinced themselves that they were being rational, that they were simply protecting themselves from potential heartbreak, that any reasonable person in their position would want to know what was being concealed behind such an impenetrable wall of quiet composure. They thought they were hunting for a hidden deception, a dark betrayal, or a secret that would justify their own internal anxieties, the nagging whisper that told them something about you didn't quite add up, that no one could be that steady, that giving, that selfless without harboring some shadowy ulterior motive. Their human mind, conditioned by a world that teaches suspicion before trust, constructed elaborate theories to explain your occasional faraway gaze, your moments of inexplicable withdrawal, the way you sometimes flinched at sounds or situations that seemed perfectly ordinary. They imagined the worst because imagining the worst felt safer than admitting that they might simply be in the presence of a love so vast and so self-sacrificing that their own understanding of love was too small to contain it. But heaven wants you to look closely, with the eyes of your spirit and not the eyes of your fear, at what happened when the file was opened. They fainted. When the investigator laid out the stark, unvarnished history of what you survived long before you ever crossed paths with your soulmate, the reality of your sacrifice hit them like a physical blow, like a wall of water crashing through every assumption, every doubt, every petty suspicion they had ever entertained. The sudden, overwhelming rush of truth completely bypassed their ego, that carefully maintained structure of self-protection that had driven them to seek answers in the first place. The truth flooded their nervous system with such an intense combination of profound guilt, agonizing heartbreak, and staggering awe that their physical body simply shut down for a moment. Their legs gave way. Their vision went dark. The world as they understood it collapsed and reformed in the space of a single breath. They did not find a villain in that report. They did not find the liar or the deceiver or the broken manipulator they had half feared, half expected. They found a saint. They found a warrior. They found a soul so completely pure, so fiercely protective, that you chose to anchor your own agonizing history in absolute silence rather than allow its debris to disrupt the carefree joy of their life. For the longest time, the higher realms have watched you carry this double life of the spirit, and they have marveled at both the beauty and the tragedy of it. On the outside, you have been their rock, their safe harbor, and the steady anchor that kept their world stable through every storm. You were the one they called when the world felt too heavy, the one whose voice alone could quiet their racing thoughts, the one whose presence transformed any room into a place of safety. But beneath that calm exterior lay a battlefield, a landscape scarred by events so devastating that most souls would have crumbled under their weight and never risen again. Yet you did rise. You rose and you walked directly into the light of a new love, carrying the full, undiminished burden of your history on your back, and you made a conscious, sacred, and heartbreakingly deliberate decision to never let that burden touch them. You consciously made a sacred covenant with yourself to lock away the memories of your most tragic chapters. This was not a casual decision. This was a blood oath made in the deepest chambers of your spirit, a promise forged in the fire of your own pain. You did this because you saw the vulnerability in your soulmate's eyes on the very first day you recognized them as your person. You recognized the fragile peace they were trying to build, the tender, hopeful way they were reaching for happiness after their own struggles, and you decided, with a clarity that only the most ancient and compassionate souls possess, that your own past was a price you were entirely willing to pay to guarantee their safety and happiness. You looked at the wreckage of your history, and you looked at the light in their eyes, and you chose. You chose them. You chose their peace. You chose to be misunderstood, to be occasionally questioned, to be seen as emotionally reserved or unnecessarily guarded, rather than ever allow the poison of your past to seep into their bloodstream. You chose to look like the quiet, sometimes distant one, willingly enduring their occasional doubts and questions, absorbing their frustration when you couldn't fully explain why certain topics made you go silent or why certain dates on the calendar turned you inward. You endured their moments of insecurity with patience and grace, knowing that the truth would have dissolved their doubts in an instant, but also knowing that the truth carried a weight that you refused to transfer to their shoulders. You let them wonder. You let them question. You let them occasionally feel hurt by your walls, all because you had calculated, with the precision of a soul that knows suffering intimately, that their momentary confusion was infinitely preferable to the devastation of knowing what you had survived. You were willing to be the mystery, the question mark, the unsolved puzzle, just so they would never have to breathe the toxic air of the trauma you endured. But heaven does not allow a beautiful sacrifice to remain misinterpreted forever. The divine operates on a timeline that transcends human patience, and when the moment is cosmically right, the truth will always find its way to the surface, no matter how deep the burial. The universe demanded that the scales be balanced, that the silent martyr be finally seen, that the hidden hero be brought into the light. When your soulmate sat across from that investigator and looked at the findings spread before them, the entirety of their understanding of you, of your relationship, and of love itself was rewritten in a single, shattering moment. They realized that every single moment they had misread as your emotional absence or mysterious reservation was actually a moment where you were actively fighting off your own demons to keep a clean, bright space open for them. Every time they had thought you were pulling away, you were actually pulling something dark and heavy deeper inside yourself to prevent it from reaching them. Every time they had wondered whether you truly loved them with your whole heart, you were in fact loving them with a ferocity and totality that included the willingness to destroy yourself in silence for their benefit. They saw the dates, the events, the cold documentation of circumstances that no soul should ever have to endure, and the sheer magnitude of the tragedy you walked through completely alone. They saw how young you were when the foundations of your world first cracked. They saw the chain of events that followed, each one compounding the devastation, each one stripping away another layer of the innocence you should have been allowed to keep. And then they saw the timeline of your relationship, and they understood, with a horror that transcended anything the investigator could have anticipated, that during every joyful milestone they shared with you, during every celebration, every lazy morning, every whispered promise in the dark, you had been simultaneously managing an internal reality of staggering pain. The realization that you had been bleeding in silence while nursing their small wounds, while soothing their minor anxieties, while treating their everyday struggles as if they were the most important things in the world, broke something fundamental within their ego. It shattered the comfortable illusion that they had been the generous one, the patient one, the one who had graciously loved a complicated person. They saw, with devastating clarity, that the equation of your love had been imbalanced from the start, and the imbalance had been entirely in their favor, maintained at a cost they were only now beginning to comprehend. Right now, in this very moment as these words reach your spirit, your soulmate is sitting in a state of profound emotional shattering. The file is open. The truth is out. The carefully constructed narrative they had built about your relationship, about who gives and who takes, about who is strong and who is vulnerable, has been completely demolished. They are looking at you through an entirely new pair of spiritual eyes, eyes that have been washed clean by the tears of a revelation so immense that it has fundamentally altered the chemistry of their soul. The trivial doubts they once held, the petty suspicions, the moments of jealousy or frustration or impatience, have been completely incinerated by the light of your true character. Those concerns have not simply been set aside, they have been annihilated, reduced to ash by the blinding recognition of who you actually are and what you have actually done for them. They are overwhelmed by an acute sense of unworthiness, a feeling so intense that it borders on physical nausea. They are wondering how they could have ever doubted a soul as magnificent as yours, how they could have ever sat across from you and questioned your commitment when you were, in that very moment, performing an act of love so profound that most human beings would never be capable of it. They are deeply grieving the fact that they forced you, through their own inability to simply trust the evidence of your devotion, to hold such a massive burden without their comfort. They are replaying every conversation, every argument, every moment of tension, and seeing it all with new eyes, eyes that now recognize the extraordinary restraint, the superhuman patience, and the boundless compassion you demonstrated in situations where you had every right to scream, to break down, to demand recognition for what you were enduring. They are terrified to face you, but not for the reasons you might expect. They are not repulsed by your trauma. They are not frightened by the darkness of your history. They are utterly and completely ashamed of their own smallness in the face of your immense love. They cannot fathom how to look into your eyes knowing that they responded to your greatest act of sacrifice with suspicion and investigation. The angels want you to release the fear that has lived in the deepest part of your being for as long as you can remember, the fear that if anyone truly saw the full picture of your past, they would view you as broken, as contaminated, as too damaged to deserve the kind of wholesome, uncomplicated love that other people seem to receive so effortlessly. That fear was once a necessary guardian. It protected you during a time when vulnerability would have destroyed you. But it has outlived its purpose, and the divine is gently but firmly asking you to lay it down. In the eyes of the divine, and now in the eyes of your soulmate, you are not damaged. You are not a cautionary tale or a collection of tragic events. You are a master of resilience, a living testament to the indestructible nature of the human spirit when it is fueled by pure love. The scars you hid so carefully are not marks of shame. They are the golden seams of a soul that has been shattered and rebuilt by divine grace, like the ancient art of repairing broken pottery with gold, transforming fractures into the most beautiful and valuable parts of the whole. By discovering the depth of what you carried for them, your soulmate has finally been stripped of the illusion that love is only found in easy, unblemished spaces. They now understand, with a certainty that will never waver, that the very ground you both stand on was cleared by your willingness to endure the fire in secret, to walk through hell and emerge carrying not bitterness or resentment, but an even greater capacity for tenderness. You are being called by the higher realms to prepare your heart for a massive wave of healing, a wave unlike anything you have experienced before because, for the first time, you will not be healing alone. The walls of secrecy that you built to protect them, those magnificent, exhausting, impossibly maintained walls, are no longer needed, dear soul. The universe has dismantled them with surgical precision because the time has come and because your soulmate spirit is finally strong enough to help you carry the weight. This is not a punishment or an exposure. This is a liberation. You no longer have to hide your triggers, those sudden jolts of fear or sadness that ambush you without warning. You no longer have to mask your heavy days, forcing brightness into your voice when your entire being is screaming for rest and recognition. You no longer have to cry in the dark to keep them safe from the sound of your grief. The direct revelation of your past has accelerated their spiritual maturity overnight, compressing years of gradual understanding into a single, explosive moment of awakening. They are being aligned by the divine to step into their true role, a role they were always destined to fill but could not access while the truth remained hidden. They are being prepared to become your equal partner in the fullest, most sacred sense of the word, the one who will now stand guard over your peace with the same vigilance you have always shown for theirs, the one who will soothe your unhealed places with hands made gentle by the knowledge of what those places have endured, and the one who will offer you the same fierce, protective, unwavering sanctuary that you have effortlessly, selflessly, and relentlessly given to them from the very beginning. Do not meet their upcoming confession with defensiveness or regret that your secret was uncovered. When they come to you, and they will come soon, do not retreat behind the old walls. Do not minimize your pain to make them comfortable. Do not rush to reassure them before you have allowed yourself to be fully seen and fully held. Trust that the divine hand orchestrated this exposure to save both of you from the slow, silent stagnation of unshared truth, from the gradual erosion that occurs when one partner carries the entire weight of a relationship's hidden foundation. Let the old timeline of solitary endurance dissolve like morning fog in the presence of a rising sun. That timeline served you. It protected you. It kept you alive and functioning when you had no one strong enough to share the load. But it is finished now, and clinging to it will only delay the breathtaking new chapter that the universe has written for you both. When they come to you in tears, broken by the weight of their own realization, shaking with the force of emotions they have never had to process before, do not push them away and do not armor yourself against their love. Open your arms and allow the shared tears to fall without shame, without explanation, without the exhausting performance of strength that has defined your existence for so long. Let those tears wash away the last remnants of that ancient trauma, not because tears alone can heal wounds of such magnitude, but because tears shared between two souls who finally see each other with total clarity create a sacred alchemy that no solitary grief can achieve. In that embrace, in that mutual vulnerability, the very chemistry of your bond will be transformed. The future you are building together is no longer a fragile structure built over a hidden fault line, a beautiful house constructed on ground that could shift and crack at any moment under the pressure of concealed truth. It is now anchored directly into the solid rock of absolute, exposed, and unconditional truth. There are no more secrets to fear, no more revelations that could destabilize what you have built, no more ticking clocks counting down to an inevitable reckoning. You are profoundly safe, dear soul. Your sacrifice has been fully recorded in the books of heaven, written in letters of gold that will never fade, and the light of total liberation is now flooding your path with an intensity that will only grow brighter with each passing day. The angels are surrounding you both, holding the sacred space for the most important conversation you will ever have, a conversation that will not be about blame or betrayal but about the breathtaking, almost incomprehensible depth of what one human soul was willing to endure in silence for the sake of love. Trust the beautiful unraveling. Trust that what feels like an ending is actually the most powerful beginning you have ever known. Trust that the divine has never, not for a single moment, looked away from your pain, and that everything, every hidden tear, every swallowed scream, every night you held yourself together with nothing but willpower and grace, has led you to this exact moment of release. You are free now, dear soul. Let yourself be free.